Jala McFadden is a content creator, storyteller, and most recently, the host of her very own podcast, the Look What You Made Me Do podcast, while working in TV currently with a bachelor's degree in communication studies from Rowan University and her master's degree in digital media and communication studies from Florida State University. I think this girl knows a thing or two about producing content, which is why I definitely wanted her on my show. Jayla, you are definitely what's good in South Jersey.
Jayla, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm really excited to have you here. I'm so glad. I listen to your podcast all the time. Mondays was my day for Look What You Made Me Do and Michelle Obama's podcast.
Yes.
So I was like,
I'm honored.
I'm getting a double douse of Black Girl Magic right now, right? So
yes.
it was good. So we're talking season 2. Season 2 of Look What You Made Me Do. That rhymes, but I'm gonna just keep going though. Look What You Made Me Do season 2 starts November 2nd, Monday, right?
Monday.
Yo, based on what you've been putting down so far, I can only imagine what's in store for season 2 because you, okay, my friend, have been giving us, if not a glimpse, a nice little peek into the lovely world of Jayla. So we're going to get into that because you gave us 10 episodes of pure goodness, pure like straight up content. But I want to start off with who gave you the idea? Where did it come from that you was like, you know what? Yeah, it's about time for me to put out a podcast.
I think the quarantine really was the catalyst for the podcast, to be honest, because I wound up releasing it the end of July and it was very random. Like one night I was up and I go to bed at like 9 o'clock, mind you. I go to bed early. I get my 8 hours. But I randomly woke up around like 3 o'clock in the morning and I was just like, I need to do a podcast.
That's crazy.
And like I already had my like a couple topics because like the Jada and Will thing had just happened. So that wound up being my first episode.
Yes.
And this year has just been such a big year on accountability for me that the Look What You Made Me Do was like it was like God-given. Like it was instant. And I was like, this is it. Like this is the title because I can tie anything back to accountability. Like we live that every day, whether we want to like come to terms with it or not, but we live that every day. So it wound up, I love the title, like to this day. I'm obsessed with it. I'm glad that people enjoy it because when you hear it, it doesn't sound like what it's kind of like the flip side of what it's actually about. Because Look What You Made Me Do is very like pointing the finger and like the Look What You Made Me Do podcast, like we're always pointing the finger like at us. Like what can we do?
Right, to
be more accountable.
Right? Yeah, and you sign off every episode with "Stay accountable," right?
Stay accountable.
So listen, my question then is, who is making you aware of accountability? Like, who's accountable to you? Who keeps you in check? Who makes sure that you're like, okay, Jayla, did you make time to record a new podcast? Did you make time to, I don't know, walk your dog if you have one? I don't know, but who keeps you in line? We all need that.
Personally, I think you should be the biggest advocate for yourself. And that's what I would say I am for me. But my mom keeps me really accountable.
Okay.
Like, really accountable. Like, my mom is someone I speak to every single day. And whether she really knows it or not, she's on me. So I remember I had like you said, Mondays are the days that I release the episodes. I love like Monday morning, 8 a.m. on your way to work. Like listen, start your week off with the podcast so you can get some insight and go through your week. Like, because I'm always trying to tell you, like, take care of yourself, like adding little tidbits in. So like I like to start the week with it. And one time I didn't do it on Monday. I like shifted it to Friday because I had a lot going on. And my mom texted me like, where's the episode? Like, you shouldn't do that. Like,
really?
It turned into this whole thing. So I think
she not
I love mothers, but yeah, like she definitely is a person who keeps me accountable, and you appreciate it because sometimes it's like not pleasant conversations. Most of the time, it's not going to be like being accountable. It sounds really good, right? But like the actual work, it's
It
like
does
a
take
whole
work.
other thing. So I feel like a lot of people push off things because it's easier to not be accountable, and the guilt that's associated with us like dropping the ball on things, not doing things that we're supposed to do. So really, like, I think this was my last episode I talked about, like, really allowing myself to feel my feelings these days,
Yeah.
because with that comes a lot of growth, power, and like control over the situation. So like even if I did screw up and I lacked accountability in an area, at that point I'm like, number one, why? What was I doing that was more important than this, that like prevented me from doing this? And then it's like, what can I do? Very like solution oriented, like now what can we do to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Amen. And you, I would say, are keeping your foot on the back of men's necks, I must say. Because
Always.
I felt it as part of the men
Someone's got to
delegation.
do it.
If I may speak on behalf of the men delegation, episode 3 entitled "Men Want What?"
Yeah, correct.
And I have to shoot this off. This quote, and I quote: "You say, stop treating women like objects that things are done to." And also, you say, "I'll always say one thing: men will always have the
The
audacity."
audacity.
And I just want to, that leaves me to ask you, why is it important for men, specifically when you're talking to, because you champion Black men, like none
Mm-hmm.
other, like you make it a point to make sure. Why is it so important for us to be accountable? Can't we just be out here living our lives, just walking around like this, just chilling?
Right. And some
Why,
of y'all
why we
do.
gotta be accountable? Like, what is this? Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of accountability, but why
Sure.
is it that you decided to use your platform to zero in and say, hey, we see you out here.
Right.
Get it together. Get your life.
Yeah.
But why?
Black men and women need to hold each other accountable when it comes to a lot of things. But Black men, there's been too many things that have gone viral on social media that we just see people saying that you might know personally or tweeting about or whatever that are so outlandish that I cannot let it pass. I can't let it slide. I will not allow it. We're gonna talk about it. So Black men, like I love Black men. I support them. So like it's out of love for me to be like saying these things. I think I grew up very tough love. So by default, that's kind of the route that I take for that. But it's out of a place of love. That's why I'm so hard on like Black men in particular, because so many times there's so much potential. We're usually the ones holding ourselves back. So it's like if you can break through, being accountable is like there's many ways to do it, but like accountability is a huge way for you to like come out on the other side and like be more productive, be more like understanding, things like that. So
On the flip side, I like how you keep yourself accountable too, because you're like, yo, I remember in another episode, you were just like, yo, I'm human. Sometimes I don't deal with things the best way, but I realize that. You was like, yo, I realize that. And like, depending on what the situation is, I may say or I may not say something, or I may do or I may not do something. But I realize it, and I'm
that's
working
half
on
the battle. Realizing it,
it.
the battle.
Yeah, it is. No.
Half.
It really is. It really, really is. Moving on. There's a lot going on here. You're a contributor also to this thing called culture in digital media and also pop culture as well, I think.
Yeah.
And in one of these episodes where we talked about I love you unconditionally, but under one condition, right? you mentioned 500 Days of Summer, which happens to be one of your favorite movies, right? You talk about it in episode 4, but what actually makes you love this movie?
This movie defies all stereotypes that like romantic rom-coms like even fall in. For those of you who have never seen it, it's basically like the guy meets girl. You think it's going to be like a typical rom-com, and then it's definitely not. Like, she's the one that kind of takes like the more masculine role, I would say, because he's feeling her a lot more. And the way that the relationship wound up flipping, and like you see, like, you know, when you go through a breakup, like you have all these stages of grief. Like, we see him like going through that, which is just so twisted because it's not the norm to see that, especially like portrayed in film. So I love it for that reason alone, that it's just like we get to see a softer like male's perspective of like that happening. Usually we don't get to see that. It's usually always the woman who winds up getting her heart broken, and to see like that heartbreak. And then there's one phenomenal scene where it's like perception versus reality. And so many of us have like had moments like that. So to see that play out side by side together, oh my God, that scene alone like makes the movie like amazing. But I just love that it defies what's considered the norm, I guess, things that we would usually see in pop culture and entertainment, and that it completely flips it. And communication is key, because even like at the end of it, they wound up like being able to have a conversation. That's another part that's unrealistic. You might not always get that closure.
Right.
But he unfortunately was able to get that and move forward with his life. Like you said, like he went through some stages of grief, but then you saw him like breaking through and like becoming better versions of himself because of that grief. So
he was breaking plates too. That was hilarious. Yeah. He was breaking plates in that kitchen.
He did. So,
like, what are you doing, bro?
Yes, it's a great movie though. Like, I highly recommend. It's going to be very different from any love story you've ever seen. So
definitely, yeah, I'm definitely adding that to the list. Now, I just want to, shout you out real quick. You have a BA in Communication Studies, right?
I do.
And you also have your master's in Digital Media and Communication Studies, right?
Yep.
So you went to school for that. So this kind of fits like a glove that you comment and you commentate on what's going on in popular culture, and, you put out your own content. But I'm curious, what got you into movies? What got you into like TV watching? Because I like to call you the binge queen.
I am.
You talk about a lot of what stuff that you're binging in this podcast, but how did you get to be that way? Was it as a kid? Like, what were your favorite shows coming up? Like movies, shows?
I watched a lot of like PBS, like Arthur, like
Arthur was good though.
Gullah Gullah Island. I know it's not PBS, but like I grew up on just a lot of like VHS stuff too, like Sesame Street, like love music, like all that kind of stuff. And then as a child, my favorite movie was Remember the Titans. I loved that movie, and still to this day, one of my favorites. But like I always just like really loved music, really loved good storylines. So I feel like that's like the first memory I have of like having a favorite movie as a kid. Like, it was Remember the Titans.
Will you ever quit? Oh, we want some more.
So good.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a real good one. That's a favorite of mine as well. How is love language books going? Because you also referenced that in episode 4.
Yeah.
And, it ties right into 500 Days of Summer and, about the 2-year mark, about how it gets real after the 2-year mark, and all that fantasy, all that infatuation and all that other good stuff just kind of dwindles, and then you get to choose now.
Yes.
Right? So you really talk about that. That's one of my favorite episodes of the podcast. But
nice.
What made you even gravitate to that book? 1, and 2, are you applying anything that you learned?
Understanding that people do love differently is really the challenge, because it's like the way that I'm giving you love might not be your love language, so you're not receiving it as such. So
Right.
it's like you have to not be selfish. That's really what it's about. You cannot be selfish because sometimes the love languages don't align. So that's,
right.
and it's work. If two people decide, okay, we do want to be together, but my love language is quality time and their love language is with acts of service, and I keep trying to, because mine's quality time, I think that he's being fulfilled by spending time together, and he's like, no.
Like, where you at? He's like, where you at? I don't
Right. So I love like the analogy that Dr. Chapman gave about like the tanks being full, like where's your tank levels at?
Yeah.
Because it's so important. Even like not even romantic relationships, like friendships too. Like you need to be accountable in terms of knowing where you need to be fulfilled and know like what works for the other person. Because sometimes you're gonna have to do stuff that might not be your norm. But
Right.
if you care about the other person, you have to shift to make sure that their tank can be filled too.
I want to go and move on to episode 6. This is the March on Washington. What was the train of thought and the emotion behind being there, and having that fresh on your mind too, with Chadwick being, just recently gone?
That was like one of the most like emotionally draining weekends I've had this year. The March on Washington was a phenomenal thing to be able to be a part of. But even in that day and that week, there were so many other historical moments that like marked anniversaries for.
Mm-hmm.
So like Emmett Till's death had happened like that week, those years ago. Like you said, Chadwick Boseman the next day. Actually, not even the next day. What's crazy about that is I'm out of shape, right? I went to the march and it drained everything out of me because it was hot, like it was long, like we were outside for hours and hours and it was phenomenal, but emotionally draining. Almost any family member of the names that you hear about were there and they spoke. So like it was so heavy there. I could just like not contain my emotion. I was just crying the whole time. It was so beautiful, but it was just very heavy. Like Breonna Taylor's mother was there. George Floyd's family was there. So like things that had just happened, and for them to like be there in that moment, and for it to be on the day of the original March on Washington, like there were so many feelings, there was so much. So it was heavy. And then to lose Chadwick Boseman the next day, it was a lot, because even that, totally uncalled for. Like no one even knew he was sick. People that he had actually worked closely with, friends were shocked. No one knew. So it was just like a heavy weekend.
Yeah.
But moments like that, you really want to reach out to the people that you care about. Life is fleeting, man. And like if 2020 has taught us anything, it's that alone. Mm-hmm.
Where do you think, in your opinion, our accountability is to each other as just Black people within the Black community? And then also, what's the accountability for our relationship with the police? Just because it's I understand that, it's one thing to, want to keep law and order, from the perspective of an officer and stuff. But at the end of the day, people are dying, and they tend to be Black. And it's like the numbers are crazy. And it's like there's a lot of the time not an answer or a response out of it, where like it's hard to get justice sometimes. So my question is, what do you think, like what's the accountability there with police and, just with the Black community, and also within the Black community? Do you think we're accountable for one another, or could we do better? Do you think we can do better?
I think we can always do better. This year has been like amazing just to see all of the protests and all of the people, white, Black, and everything in between, like coming together. But I do feel like as Black people, we do need to hold each other accountable for everything that we do, everything, because it's the little things that become the big things. The jobs that we have, the company that we keep, the relationships that we have or don't have, like, we need to be accountable for those kinds of things with one another. In terms of the police, to your point, it's like, we've seen, like, what I would want to say is, you know, have your ID and stuff like out and ready if you get pulled over, like to take the proper precautions if you do interact with police. But we know that you can do all the right things and still get killed. So even with that, I really, we're doing the right things. A lot of us are doing the right things. So in terms of accountability with that, just educate yourself, knowing your rights, things of that sort, but you just have to be careful. And that's why it is important for like Black people to look out for one another and hold each other accountable all the time, because you could be doing all the right things and it still could end in tragedy, unfortunately.
I would like to go to the 25 lessons in 25 years. My favorite one for you is what's meant for me will never, ever miss me. I'm curious, how did you come to know that? Because I don't think that's a lesson that you just come to know out of the blue.
I had just finished grad school in December of 2018, and right before graduation, I had been applying because I really wanted to be in Atlanta. I'm like, this is the hub for like entertainment, Black people, like this is absolutely where I want to be. So I had been applying like months before graduation. Nothing was coming together. And right before graduation, I had interviewed for a position in Philly where I made it to like the very last round. So I was like, I know I'm going to get this job. Like, definitely going to get this job. Wound up not getting it. And I was like, wow, like, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe, like, I didn't get this job. I thought it was, like, perfect because, like, right before graduation, all of that. Right. So, anyway, didn't get the job, didn't find anything before graduation. I come home. I'm staying with my mom, like, still, like, consistently interviewing and everything. Super tedious time. Like, anyone who, like, is working knows, like, looking for work is a full-time job, applying, interviewing, all of that. It's a lot. So another opportunity comes up, was positive that I was going to have this opportunity. Basically, like when I got the other call, I was like, oh, this will just be confirming everything. And it was that I didn't get it again. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I thought this was the opportunity. Like I missed the one before that. I really thought this was the one. But what's interesting is the week that I had that call, I took another call to schedule an interview somewhere else in Philly. And I was like, I don't really, it's whatever. Like, this is fine. I think I'm going to get this other job, but I'll accept. And that's the job I wound up getting. The job that I totally just was like, whatever. Better benefits, more money, everything. So in terms of what's for me will never miss me, it's like, first of all, the things that we think we want, God already knows that like that's not what we're supposed to have anyway. We're so set on it.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. Like he is probably laughing hysterically, like, oh really? Like if she just knew what I had for her, she wouldn't be, because I was so upset over the one job I didn't get. I was in tears. I was like up in arms that I didn't get this job. And to think that literally not even a month later, I don't think, better opportunity, but just overall better situation that I could not see it. And that's what it usually is. So it's like, I say that for me personally, but like for anyone that's dealing with anything, what's meant for you, it doesn't matter if someone's like better at the job, if they know more people, it will not miss you. It cannot. Like it literally cannot.
That's
so
a word right there. Yes.
there's so much comfort in knowing that.
Yeah.
Knowing that like there's nothing that I can do or that anyone else can do to take away what's meant for me. Like I'm always going to get it. So that's like one of my favorite lessons, because you can apply it to like so many different areas of life. But if you just have the faith to like believe that, I think that more blessings will like start to come to you, because you get to let go of all the stress that comes along with like not knowing. If you just know that like what's meant for you won't miss you, you can because that stuff is heavy carrying that around. So once you can let that go, you can breathe and you can like welcome what actually is like supposed to be.
So the guy who you mentioned was like top 5 worst date ever. He should be okay, because what's meant for him is definitely meant for him.
Oh my gosh, it's so
Even
funny
if he
because
feeds people like men, it's all good. It's all
listen,
good.
we still have each other on social media, which is why I said the disclaimer because that was like a really popular episode. So I was like, like he could potentially hear this.
It was hilarious.
My gosh.
What it was. He said, when I say I be sleep, and your girl be sleep.
And I was like, dang. I was so mad.
I know.
Really nice guy, but oh my gosh.
So Jayla, all right, listen, I got 2 more questions for you, right?
Okay.
2 more questions for you, and let me shoot off by first saying, it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you know how they say you're your brother's keeper? Mm-hmm. It seems like you're almost like your brother's keeper, sister's keeper. A lot of your shows are on the podcast, and just the content that I've seen you, even with your vlog, is tips for people post-college. It's tips for just people being, independent and just starting out, but like it always is in like a helpful package. Whatever you have to say, it seems. So I'm just curious, why is that pressed upon your heart to be like a guide? It seems like you're such a helpful guide when when it comes to your 25, lessons to, episode 4 with the, I love you unconditionally under one condition, and then episode 7, self-care, and just like you're putting this type of work into the atmosphere when other people are putting out just whatever. So why?
I feel like this is like a part of like my gift, and it's a sin to like not use what you've been given. I've just always been drawn to like these kinds of topics, and I think that because I'm like so open with my life, you never know when people are like dealing with the same kinds of things. So I love to just be like very blunt and like, listen, this is what I'm dealing with, y'all. And it's crazy because I get so many comments publicly and privately that could just be like, hey, you know what? I've really been having a week, but like this really related to me and like X, Y, and Z. So I just feel like it's my responsibility to share the tips that I have, my life. Like if someone can learn and like grow from that, then I've done my job.
What is the end goal for you? End game, Jayla is going to be here. What's Jayla McFadden's legacy?
I always wanted to be like in the entertainment industry. So I feel like the next couple of years will be me like continuing to build on things that are important to me, and it will lead me to the right opportunity. Like I'm no longer like forcing to like be in certain situations or be in certain spaces that actually might not be meant for me. I can't remember what sermon this was, but I was listening to something recently, and it was basically saying like sometimes the role that God has for you like doesn't even exist yet. Like he's literally like made it custom for you. So when you continue to do what you're supposed to be doing, That's why like you can't always like share everything with everyone in terms of like what your vision is and dreams and all this stuff, because it's like it might be something that literally does not exist, and then people, because they can't understand it, they're like, oh well, you can't do that because that's like not a thing. But my point is, I just feel like within the next couple of years, I really do want to like merge into the entertainment industry full-fledged, whether that's like, I don't know, like being on screen or being like behind the camera or writing or PR, like anything that gets me in that industry that I love. That's definitely like the goal, and I think the legacy that I aim to have in the end, because it's just what I'm genuinely passionate about. So that's what I want to leave, like showing that I did what I did because I genuinely enjoyed it. And that says a lot for anyone who's doing things that they actually enjoy, because in this life it's so easy to get caught up into the like everyday scheduling, like you do your 9 to 5, like whatever. Like I literally work for a tech company, and like all this stuff that I'm doing is like outside of that. So we all have the same 24 hours. We do not all have the same resources, but that still doesn't always have to limit us. And I think that's like a key takeaway. Use what you have. And we've seen like stories of people who their careers didn't really kick off the way they wanted them to until they were 40, 50, 60, whatever, but they used what they had. They did what they were passionate about. And that's just like what I always aim to do.
Well, we'll take it and we'll land that plane. We'll land this plane right here. Great answer. I heard that, and I'm sure that people will receive that too. Get to work on what you're passionate about, and it sounds like you're still grinding, and that's really what it's about. Like that's where it's at, and then stay ready so you don't have to get ready, right? Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Amen. Amen.
When that opportunity comes, you'll just be there, ready to go. Like that's how it's supposed to be. Put in the work. You've got to put in the work so that when the opportunity presents itself, you've been waiting your whole life for it. It's just literally there for you to take.
Amen. So just so we're clear, Look What You Made Me Do podcast is available on all streaming platforms. Mm-hmm. And the season 2, the brand new season of Look What You Made Me Do will be available November 2nd.
Yes.
Oh, my light. That's all right. That's all right. That's what post is for. Anyway, yo, this was really great. Thank you for making time to talk to me. And this is definitely what's good in South Jersey. You are definitely what's good in South Jersey. What was I going to say? Yeah, November 2nd, guys. Awesome. Please check out her stuff. And thanks again for making time.
Yes, interviewing is hard, guys. Isaiah is a great interviewer, okay?
Come on,
to keep things flowing, it's a talent that not everyone has. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This was dope. I love that you actually listened to the podcast too, so you didn't have to go back and do too much stuff because you actually listened. So it's helpful.
Yes, amen. Amen to that. All right. Jayla, have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. You too.